I would like to welcome you all to the annual public meeting of the Canadian Museum of Immigration at Pier 21. J'aimerais vous souhaiter la bienvenue à l'Assemblée publique annuelle du musée. Today we will be reporting on the fiscal year beginning April 1st, 2021 and ending March 31st, 2022. I'm proud to say that we're doing so from my hometown of Winnipeg, where we are hosted by our fellow National Museum, the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. Winnipeg is on Treaty 1 territory, the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene people, and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. De plus, l'eau que nous buvons ici provient du territoire de la Première Nation de Shoal Lake 40 dans le territoire du Traité 3 à l'est de Winnipeg. I wish to acknowledge that Pier 21 is located in Mi'kmahi, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Nous sommes tous des gens du traité et nous sommes chanceux de partager cette terre que nous appelons le Canada. Now I would ask you to cast your mind back to April 1st, 2021. We were just over the one-year mark of the COVID-19 pandemic that has changed the way we live our lives. Around the country, businesses, institutions, and schools were navigating various sized waves of new cases. We'd already been through a lot, but it was a time of hope, with the first vaccines being widely rolled out across the country. Le 1er avril, au musée, les portes étaient fermées au public alors que nous mettions la touche finale aux rénovations d'une de nos expositions permanentes. Quelques jours plus tard, le 7 avril, nous avons ouvert à temps pour présenter aux visiteurs les zones de contribution nouvellement installées dans la salle de l'immigration canadienne. Cette expérience multimédia immersive comprend un mur vidéo de 45 pieds de largeur. That spring, visitation was slow, as we had predicted. Travel across provincial borders remained restricted. The public was understandably worried about the safety of public spaces. We had anticipated and planned for this. However, as we moved into summer, visitation exceeded our conservative estimates. And although it was nothing like pre-pandemic summers, it was wonderful to see the return of tourists and local visitors. C'était l'année des mesures hybrides. Certains événements se sont déroulés en personne dans la mesure où les conditions et les chances de travail le permettaient. D'autres en ligne et d'autres encore les deux. Cette année a mis en évidence la capacité d'adaptation et la résilience du musée et de son personnel. I'm proud of the work done by Murray Chapman, our CEO, and by the senior leadership team and staff during this year. J'aimerais remercier notre direction, notre personnel et nos bénévoles d'avoir continué à servir les Canadiens et Canadiennes en s'acquittant du mandat du musée. I would also like to thank my fellow trustees for their hard work and dedication to the museum. It is very satisfying to be able to be with them and museum management as we hold our annual public meeting in person for the first time in 3 years. Nous sommes très reconnaissants envers le gouvernement du Canada pour son soutien continu à nos musées nationaux et pour le renouvellement de son financement et de secours face à la COVID-19. This vital assistance, together with prudent financial planning, a busy summer and fall season, and ongoing support from a strong network of donors, has meant that the museum could operate with the confidence in the midst of uncertainty. The museum fulfills a vital role in collecting and sharing the stories of how people have come to this land and how the face of Canada continues to evolve. There are stories of challenge and triumph, of rejection and inclusivity, as experienced by newcomers to Canada. These stories are essential to our understanding of our past, and they are instructive as Canada continues to welcome people from all over the world. C'est notre honneur, notre privilège et notre responsabilité d'être les gardiens de notre patrimoine d'immigration au nom de toute la population canadienne. And now I would ask Mary Chapman, CEO of the museum, to present her report.
I'm standing in the Scotiabank Family History Center, an area where visitors, helped by our professional researchers, can look into immigration and genealogical records to find out about how, where, and when their family arrived in Canada. C'est un endroit important. Et pour les visiteurs, c'est un endroit qui peut être très émouvant. La plupart des habitants de ce pays ont une histoire d'immigration dans leur famille. This room and the work that happens here is, of course, just a small part of the Canadian Museum of Immigration at Pier 21. Our museum is located at a National Historic Site. During a brief 43-year window, nearly 1 million people arrived in Canada by sea and came through this building. In fact, I'm speaking to you from the very spot where those newcomers took their first steps on Canadian soil. But the museum is about much more than that. Nous veillons à ce que le contenu du musée explore le thème de l'immigration canadienne, peu importe l'époque ou le point d'entrée au Canada, ainsi que la contribution de tous les immigrants à sa culture, à sa économie et à son mode de vie. One example, local to Manitobans, is a series of interviews collected by our oral historian, Emily Burton, in the town of Nipawa. The project captures the experiences of members of the large group of Filipinos who began arriving in 2008 as temporary foreign workers. Many became permanent residents, brought families, and purchased homes. Nipawa now boasts a Filipino Cultural Association and one of the fastest growing populations in Canada. Those oral histories are now part of our growing collection, a resource that will serve the museum as well as casual and academic researchers long into the future. La collection est une ressource inestimable. Il est de notre responsabilité de la protéger. C'est pourquoi, cette année, nous avons mis en place un nouveau système de préservation numérique. We are a national museum. Even though we're based in Halifax, we speak to Canadians across the country with exhibitions and programming that are innovative, compelling, thought-provoking, and which reflect the diversity of the immigrant experience. We do this in several ways. Despite COVID-19 restrictions, I was thrilled that our traveling exhibition, Refuge Canada, could open at the Pump House Museum in Kingston, Ontario in July of 2021, and the Western Development Museum in Saskatoon later that year. A smaller version of the exhibition traveled to Yarmouth, Sydney, and Glace Bay, Nova Scotia. L'exposition Refuge Canada a été créée par l'équipe ici présente pour démonter certains mythes sur les personnes susceptibles de devenir des réfugiés et sur le rôle que nous jouons en tant que société dans la crise actuelle. It shares first-hand accounts of fear, loss, and the desperation people forced to leave their homelands, as well as the courage, resilience, and perseverance of so many.
For refugees who escape by sea, a spot on a crowded boat can be the only way out. When safety looks like this, imagine what danger looks like.
You never know how exhibitions are going to impact people. When Refuge Canada was in Kingston, a young woman was taking photos on her phone of a tent that's part of the exhibit. The tent is the same one issued to refugees by the UNHCR. It turns out she was originally from Ethiopia, but spent a lot of her youth in Somalia and spoke 3 dialects of Somali. Later, she ended up in Kenya in a refugee camp for 10 years, where she lived in one of those tents. Our exhibition brought back memories of a childhood and of friendships that she'd had to leave behind. Dans une section ultérieure de l'exposition, les gens peuvent écrire des notes sur l'impact que les réfugiés ont eu sur eux ou sur leur communauté. Elle a écrit, en langue somalienne, « Je peux ressentir les difficultés d'être réfugié parce que je l'ai vécu et je suis heureuse d'être au Canada aujourd'hui. » In this, the second year of the pandemic, we carried forward many of the digital and hybrid approaches we developed in year 1. We launched season 2 of the museum's 2 podcasts, D'innombrables Voyages et Countless Journeys. And we began production on season 3. Ces balados dans chacune des langues officielles du Canada ne sont pas de simples traductions. Ils abordent tous deux le même thème, mais chacun est distinct et raconte des histoires différentes. Where Season 2 focused on the contributions of immigrants to Canada, Season 3 zeroes in on immigrant artists in both the visual and performing arts. Have a listen to this clip of Peabody-winning host Paulo Pietropalo and his conversation with Jorge Requena Ramos of Winnipeg's Mariachi Ghost.
The band mixes the sounds of traditional Mexican music with searing rock and four-part harmonies inspired by Mennonite choirs. It is a wild mashup of culture and sound that, according to its creators, could only be made in Canada.
The Mariachi Ghost is an entirely Canadian experiment. We were able to create something that was multicultural, a reflection of the city that we live in. So it's a very, very Canadian experience, and we're very proud about that.
Les balados de musée ne sont qu'un moyen parmi d'autres de remplir la mission du musée à l'échelle nationale. Nous avons également organisé 30 visites virtuelles du musée avec des élèves habitant aussi loin que la Yukon. Our offerings included 28 public programs, most of which had an option to attend virtually. The immensely popular Scotiabank Family History Center, which helps people uncover their family's immigration and genealogical records, received nearly 10,000 research requests, both on-site and online, connecting Canadians to their own immigration history. Akil Varane a été l'artiste en résidence de cette année. Son projet d'art participatif en ligne, qui incluait de la peinture, de l'illustration, une conception de livre et une animation en 2D, a été lancé en mars. It beautifully reflects and incorporates the words and images of 100 immigrant stories submitted from across Canada into a multimodal love letter to everyday immigrant heroes. I cannot talk about last year without commending a special group of employees who continue to serve to keep us safe. That's our 11-member COVID task force, co-chaired by Ashley McPherson and Emma Roach. This team continues to make informed decisions on COVID policy for museum operations. Many thanks to Ashley and to Emma for their leadership and to the whole team. Nous ne serions pas en mesure de faire ce que nous faisons sans soutien. Les donateurs individuels, grands et petits, font une grande différence dans notre travail en tant que musée. Il faut mentionner les commanditaires, les organisations partenaires et les fondations caritatives. Je laisserai les donateurs et incroyables bénévoles, les anciens présidents et présidentes du conseil d'administration, Sherry Porter et Wadia Ferres, parler de l'importance des donateurs et de la philanthropie pour la musée.
Beaucoup de personnes prennent différents moyens pour venir au Canada. Et leurs histoires font partie d'une histoire plus vaste qui forme la trame de notre pays.
Pier 21 really connects us to the story, to the country, and it connects us to each other. The idea was germinated in the mid-1990s of someone who was an immigration officer, and he really wanted to preserve the heritage of what the immigration at Pier 21 was in its day when it was open. And it started from there. We had to raise a lot of money to get the doors open on July 1st, 1999. And it was a pretty exciting day. We had 10,000 people here. We eventually realized that we were so important on the immigration file, and we thought we need to be a national treasure.
Le premier politicien à qui j'ai demandé l'aide pour transformer le quai 21 en musée national était très surpris et m'a demandé si j'étais faux. 2 ans plus tard, le Premier ministre visitait Halifax pour annoncer que le quai 21 deviendrait en fait un musée national. Et je crois que cette annonce, le Canada est pour la première fois à remercier les immigrants pour leur contribution à la prospérité et à la construction du merveilleux pays où nous vivons aujourd'hui.
The impact that we've had locally is, I think, quite huge. We have an incredible program of community programming, education, both for the general public, for school kids. And if you want to be excited, you want to come to the Canada Day celebrations at Pier 21, a citizenship ceremony. There's a lot goes on behind these doors.
You know what paratroopers look like with their helmets and their smocks and their machine guns across their chest. And they were shouting, Hände hoch, nicht schießen. Hands up, don't shoot, don't shoot.
So being a national museum gives us a lot more leverage to do things like that, to have the traveling exhibits, to actually physically show people in Nanaimo or in Saskatoon what Pier 21 is. It's really important to be physically in front of people as well as just a museum in Halifax.
La raison pour laquelle je suis engagé avec le Quai 21 est toujours la même. Parce que le Musée canadien de l'immigration reflète l'importance de l'immigration. Et cela a beaucoup de valeur et il est indispensable que les nouvelles générations l'apprennent et l'apprécient.
It doesn't always tell the success stories. It tells the real story of some of the not so great things that have happened in Canadian immigration, the sad stories, the times that we're not proud of as a country. When I look at what it takes to keep a museum of this caliber running, it takes a lot of work, not just management, feet on the ground, but it takes philanthropy. It was a story of love from the beginning. People say to me, that was a long time ago, why are you still involved? And I said, I can't stop. There's something about it that gets into your heart, and I think I'll always be somehow involved. Think of Pier 21 as the platform for you to share your story, for you to talk about the hope of the country and your family and generations to come. We can do that here.
Le Quai 21 est un symbole de ce que signifie le Canada. Opportunité, égalité, paix et liberté. Alors, si le bien-être du Canada vous intéresse, vous ne pouvez que soutenir le Musée canadien de l'immigration, le Quai 21.
On the theme of fundraising, we were thrilled to be able to bring back our ever-popular California Wine Dinner fundraiser for the first time since the pandemic began. Thanks to generous sponsors and a sold-out crowd, it was a very successful evening. It was great to see and reconnect with the museum's long-standing supporters. There are a few donors and supporters for 21-22 that I would like to recognize now. Their support allowed us to carry on important programs and activities during this highly atypical year. I want to thank the Beatrice Crawford family for their support of the virtual field trip education programs that I mentioned earlier. The feedback we've had from teachers and participants has been magnificent.
Hi, I'm Christine, and I'm in charge of visitor experience at the Canadian Museum of Immigration at Pier 21. Our national museum, located in Halifax, Nova Scotia, is also home to a historic site where nearly 1 million immigrants first landed. We explore the ongoing story of immigration to Canada. The museum is full of the authentic stories of arrival, of struggle, of being welcomed and excluded. Our new virtual field trips transport students and educators to the museum from their classrooms. They get students thinking critically about the experience of immigrants and discussing themes like identity, history, citizenship, and diversity. Students are invited to imagine the experience of arrival in Canada through the eyes of different groups and individuals. We have several 30 to 40-minute interactive, discussion-based experiences created and led by our knowledgeable team of interpreters. The trips are engaging for students and meet curriculum objectives across all of Canada's school boards. In fact, we love to work with teachers to make sure your goals are met. Experiences are adaptable for all grades, and we have offerings in both French and English. The museum is home to unique stories, and we can't wait to share them with you. Visit pier21.ca/learn to choose a trip for your class today.
The Atlantic Jewish Council supported our Jewish immigration education programs as a way of honoring Ruth Goldblum, a visionary leader who helped to establish the museum and build it over the course of 2 decades.
They started making you a prisoner actually in your own home in the beginning. And they started arresting people, take them to the Gestapo security service headquarters, and they would beat them badly. They disappeared, they would shoot them, and this started right in the beginning. It wasn't later on when they started mass murder. It was right from the beginning. They started making a Jew became an outlaw.
The Holocaust is an example of how hatred can be weaponized against groups of people. It's so important to continue to memorialize and remember and talk about the Holocaust, because we need to encourage each other to never allow something like that to happen again.
Holocaust education provides lessons in human rights, human behavior, social justice, and it provides us with the opportunity to understand the consequences of prejudice and stereotypes in society and the danger of remaining silent and not speaking out. We are very grateful for our long-standing partnership with the Canadian Museum of Immigration at Pier 21. It allows us to expand our programs and our outreach for Holocaust education.
We have 3 opportunities for the public to join us and share in the education, memorialization, and remembrance of the Holocaust. Holocaust Education Week taking place the first week of November. International Holocaust Remembrance Day taking place on January 27th each year. And Yom HaShoah taking place in either April or May, according to the Jewish calendar.
Each year, we work together to plan programs with Holocaust survivors, relevant films, arts, dramas, and we explore new areas of Holocaust research in order to increase our demographic outreach.
It isn't just about the evil, it isn't just about the hate. It's also about the people who survived. It's about the hope that people held on to, even in the darkest of circumstances. It's about the people who risked their lives to do the right thing, to provide shelter to their neighbors. In this way, Holocaust education really does encourage an empathy for your fellow humans. It does encourage connection between so many people, and I think that that is one of the main reasons why we continue to memorialize and remember and educate people on this subject. We hope that everyone can join us and participate in these events alongside us and ensure that we never forget and never repeat the mistakes of the past.
I want to thank CIBC for supporting our school group education programs, RBC Foundation for its support of our youth employment program, Scotiabank for supporting our volunteer program, TD Bank Group for its support of the Refuge Canada Travelling Exhibition and Asian Heritage Month, and BMO for being the lead supporter of our annual fundraiser and for its support of our oral history gallery. As the 2021-22 fiscal year ended, excitement and energy were building at the museum. On March 12th, we opened a very special exhibition, The World of Yusuf Karsh, A Private Essence, featuring over 100 masterful portraits of 20th century icons. Yusuf Karsh arrived in Halifax as a teenager, traveling alone, fleeing the Armenian genocide, and went on to become one of the world's most famous portrait photographers. The exhibition was organized by the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts in collaboration with our own museum and curated by Dr. Hilliard T. Goldfarb, MMFA's Senior Curator Emeritus of Collections and Curator of Old Masters. The Halifax exhibition is generously supported by Fred and Elizabeth Fountain. Alors que l'incertitude demeure au sujet de la COVID-19, il y a aussi beaucoup d'envie refoulée de voyager, de sortir, de revenir aux espaces sociaux. Avec le retour des bateaux de croisière en 2022 et une industrie touristique dynamique, nous constatons des signes d'un retour en fréquentation élevée. We invite you to visit us in person or online to see what the museum has to offer. We look forward to welcoming you.